As a developer in any language, you end up writing lots of Boolean tests, right? Things that you're just seeing if it's true or false. If 1 is less than 2, if variable A is greater than or equal variable B, I want commands X, Y, and Z to execute. So we're going to take a look in this video series on writing your own if statements inside of Visual Basic. And we'll talk about using some of the various ways to write your commands. And I'll try to give you some syntax shortcuts. We're also going to talk about select case towards the end of the next video so that you can get into working with some of the more advanced constructs, I think, in the language. Without further ado, I'm just going to create a console application. And by the way, what I'm teaching you about if statements and the syntax here for making decisions works on all the various versions of Visual Studio 2005, Express, Professional. These are features of the language. They're not features of a particular edition of the language. So we're going to use a console application just because it's the simplest for me to demo and show you the syntax here. So I'm going to create a new VB console application. The syntax is going to be the same for a .NET, ASP.NET, WinForms, whatever you use. It's just decision making, right? So let's do this. We are going to create a variable called message, okay, as string, and we're going to just take a look at we'll make one decision. If 1 is less than 2, then print out a message that says so. Otherwise, a message that says something else. All right, so here we go. Let's use if. Okay. So if in VB is pretty simple to write. So we could, if we hit enter right now, we could, up here, let's go ahead and write our statement, if 1 is less than 2. And I hit enter. It will automatically generate the stub here for me to write the correct syntax. So VB does have the then statement, and we do need to put it in there. It is required syntax here. So if 1 is less than 2, then message equals all is right with the world. And there is an else clause. Now the stub did not include that, but I just simply type in else, hit enter. You can see it does the indenting, message equal the world is wrong. That's it. Console.writeLine, and we'll write out the message, and that will just print it out to the DOS prompt, and console.readLine. And what readLine is going to do is essentially wait for me to hit the enter key. So I'm just going to hit debug or hit a little play button right here, and you can see all is right with the world. And because we put in console.readLine, it's waiting for me to hit the enter key. I do so, and it exits the program. Now, those of you that have perhaps a little more savvy with VB would note that this is possibly a very long-winded way to have written what we wanted to write. And we're going to shorten this a little bit using another variation. By the way, before we leave here, you do not have to have an else statement. So I could do something like this. Dim message as string. We'll initialize the string with our initialized string. Okay. And so now we could say if 1 is greater than 2, message equals all is right with the world. Okay, so we've changed now the value here. So 1 is not greater than 2 now, so it simply brings back our initialized string. And for a value that we're doing right here, for something like, let's just close this out. I think this would be a preferable syntax here, to go ahead and initialize my variable, the message variable here, and then only change it when necessary. Okay. Now, another thing that we could do, and perhaps my favorite here, would be the if. Okay. You might have seen this before. if is a function in VB, and it allows me to do something like this. So instead of our initialized string, I come up here, if I put in my Boolean. You see the Boolean test. So if 1 is less than 2, what do you want to do? I want the message to be all is right with the world. If it's false, then the world is wrong. And that's it. I don't need the if test. I don't need any of that. Take out if. And I now run this, and you see that all is right with the world. So when you have an evaluation that you need to simply do one thing, like assign a variable based on whether 1 is less than 2, or variable A is less than variable B here, then I think that this is a far easier syntax. It requires a little more knowledge of the language, but not that much more knowledge of the language. Now you are only allowed to do right here a single thing. I cannot break this up and have 20 lines of code right here. This is just a single bit here. Now there is I tell you what, before we go there, you can't do this with if. Watch if I tried to do this. So let's now change this. So let's copy this out, comment this out, and we'll say now dim message as string equal if. Okay? This is not going to be allowed. If 1 is less than 2, you got to put the then all is right, else all is wrong. Okay? And actually with if statements, if it's all on the same line like this, no need for the end if. Okay? So let's just make a note about that. No need for end if the if statement is all on one line. But this is going to generate an error message here. So I say run, and it's going to give me a build error. Okay? So if you actually want to do this move right here, you have to use the if. Let's do this. Let's change this. Now we'll set this as our default value. And right here, what we'll do is say message equals, like we did previously. So here is now, and Control K, Control D to format that. So I just hit Control K, comma, and then I hit Control D to format the code. That works in all the Visual Studio environments here. Okay? But now all is right and the message all is wrong. Notice the absence of end if. I kept everything on a single line, so I don't actually have to do that. Okay? So if it's all on a single line, don't have to use the end if here.